Imagine this, it's a cold afternoon in 2005. A Turkish immigrant with almost no money and zero experience in the yogurt business is driving down a lonely country road in upstate New York. He slows down when he sees an old, abandoned factory with a faded "for sale" sign swinging in the wind. The windows are dark. The parking lot is empty. Most people would have driven right past it without a second thought. But Hamdi Ulukaya didn't drive past it. He stopped the car, because in that moment, he saw something no one else could see. That factory had once pumped out millions of cups of yogurt every year for Kraft Foods. But Kraft had given up on it completely. The equipment was outdated. American yogurt tasted thin and artificial. Europeans were laughing at it. So they shut the doors, laid off the workers, and walked away like it was worthless. Hamdi looked at that dead building and felt something stir deep inside him. He saw a possibility. He saw his entire future. What he did next would turn that forgotten factory into one of the fastest growing food empires in American history, and completely change what yogurt tastes like for millions of people around the world. Welcome to Behind the Fortune, the channel that takes you inside the biggest, wildest company rises and the most spectacular falls in business history. Every week we tell the real, dramatic stories behind the brands you thought you knew. No boring spreadsheets, just gripping storytelling with the lessons you can actually use. If you're new here, hit subscribe and the bell right now. Hamdi Ulukaya grew up on a sheep and goat farm in a tiny village in eastern Turkey. From the time he was a little boy, he watched his family make thick, creamy yogurt the old-fashioned way, straining it by hand in cloth bags, the same recipe passed down for generations. Food wasn't just food in that village. It was culture. It was pride. It was the thing that brought the whole community together after a long day in the fields. In the mid-1990s, Hamdi left everything behind and moved to America with just a few $1,000s in his pocket. He worked odd jobs, studied English at night, and eventually started a small feta cheese company in upstate New York. But something always bothered him deeply. The yogurt in American grocery stores tasted wrong. Too sweet, too thin, too fake. It was nothing like the rich, tangy yogurt he grew up eating back home. He would stand in the dairy aisle and shake his head, thinking, Americans deserve better than this. Then, one ordinary day in 2005, a piece of junk mail changed his life forever. It was an ad from Kraft Foods announcing they were shutting down their yogurt factory in South Edmeston, New York. Most people threw the flyer in the trash. Hamdi clipped it out and stuck it in his pocket. For months, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He drove past the empty plant again and again, staring at the dark windows, imagining what it could become if someone just believed in it. Finally, he worked up the nerve and called the number. The Kraft executives on the other end thought it was a prank. This unknown immigrant with almost no money wanted to buy their entire factory. They laughed. But Hamdi was dead serious. He scraped together every dollar he had, took out a massive Small Business Administration loan, and put up everything he owned as collateral. In August 2005, he bought the abandoned plant for roughly $700,000. At that moment, he had almost no employees, no distribution, no brand, and the entire American yogurt market was dominated by giant companies making cheap, sugary stuff. For the next 2 years, Hamdi and a tiny team, including a master yogurt maker he brought over from Turkey, basically lived inside that old factory. They worked day and night, testing batch after batch. The equipment kept breaking down. The power bills were crushing them. There were weeks when payroll was impossible, and Hamdi had to borrow money from friends just to keep the lights on. He later admitted he came within days of losing everything. multiple times. He would drive home at 2 a.m., wondering if he had just destroyed his life and his family's future. But they refused to quit. They were trying to recreate the thick, protein-packed Greek yogurt Hamdi remembered from childhood, the kind that actually tasted real and left you satisfied. They threw away hundreds of failed batches that tasted terrible. The pressure was insane. Finally, in 2007, they nailed the recipe. They needed a name. Hamdi chose Chobani, the Turkish word for shepherd, a quiet tribute to his family's roots, and the simple belief that good food should come from people who truly care. But now came the hardest part, getting anyone to sell it. Major grocery chains laughed them out of the room. "We already have yogurt brands," they said. So Hamdi did something that seemed completely insane at the time. He started giving it away for free. He mailed samples to bloggers, nutritionists, food writers, anyone who might talk about it. He begged small independent stores to take just one case on consignment. He was basically begging people to try his yogurt. Slowly, word started spreading. People tasted it and couldn't believe how different it was. Thicker, creamier, actually satisfying. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 2009, a buyer from Whole Foods tried Chobani for the first time. He took one bite, looked at Hamdi and said, "We're putting this in every store." Within weeks, shelves were emptying faster than they could restock. Stores started calling Hamdi, begging for more product. Customers were literally asking for that new Greek yogurt by name. The explosion was unbelievable. In 2007, they were hand packing just a few thousand cups a week. By 2012, they were producing millions of cups every single day. Chobani went from a tiny startup in an old factory to the #1 Greek yogurt brand in America, beating billion-dollar corporations that had been around for decades. Greek yogurt, which barely existed in America before Chobani, suddenly made up more than half of the entire US yogurt market. But during this insane growth, Hamdi did something that still shocks the entire business world today. In 2016, he walked into his factories and made an announcement that brought some workers to tears. He gave away 10% of the entire company, not just to executives, but to every single employee who had helped build Chobani from nothing. Factory workers, truck drivers, the people on the production line. Everyone suddenly owned real shares. Some longtime employees woke up to find their stock was now worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. It was one of the largest employee ownership giveaways in American corporate history. Hamdi stood in front of them and said words that still give people chills. If Chobani is successful, the people who built it should share in the success. Today, Chobani is worth around $20 billion. That old abandoned Kraft plant in South Edmiston is now one of the largest yogurt facilities in the world. Hamdi has opened more factories, launched oat milk and other products, and the company keeps growing strong in 2026. And Hamdi Ulukaya, the immigrant who once drove past that dead factory with almost nothing, is still running the company. But now with a simple mission, prove that a business can be wildly successful and still do the right thing. The craziest part, the biggest opportunity wasn't some shiny new invention in Silicon Valley. It was sitting in plain sight, an old factory everyone else had given up on. A product everyone thought Americans wouldn't want. A chance most people would have driven right past without ever noticing. Sometimes the greatest business stories don't start with billions in funding or Ivy League degrees. They start with one person who sees possibility where everyone else sees failure. If this story hit you the way it hit me, drop a comment right now and tell me, what's the craziest abandoned opportunity you've ever seen someone turn into something huge? And if you want the full sequel on how Chobani is expanding in 2026, including the new oat milk empire and international factories, just type sequel in the comments and I'll make it next. Thanks for watching Behind the Fortune. If you love these real underdog business stories, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next one. New video drops every week. I'll see you in the next one.